Revelation chapter 22, look at verse 18. Revelation chapter 22, verse 18. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written where? In this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of this book, or of the words of this book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written where? You get the idea here that God's pretty serious about this? So it's absolutely, totally, scripturally suspect to just say, oh, the longer readings are corrupt because they're longer and they had to have been added to. It would have been just as easy for somebody to do what? Subtract. Now, I want you to look at that chart one more time. It's bigger now. And you can see the multiplicity of copies here. They are more recent. There is no doubt about it. Some of these other ones back here, they are older. But you should not there are readings from this time period in here that match up with these readings over here. So you should not be confused when you hear people talk about some of this stuff. I want to read you a quotation. This is from James R. White's book, The King James Only Controversy. He says, if I can find it, he says, on what evidence are we to believe that just because the majority witness agrees that it should be believed? What is his opinion? I'll tell you on what authority. On the authority of that book. Because that book says that the preservation is going to occur through a multiplicity of what? So if you're going to believe the Bible, then you're going to have to go to the evidence and see where the preservation occurred. Okay? Now, all of that being said, it brings me to sort of the really big point here that you need to see this morning. And that is that there are fundamentally only really two kinds of Bibles. Okay? This investigation leads to the following conclusion. There are fundamentally only two different kinds of Bibles. Bibles that follow the TR, the Textus Receptus, for the majority of the readings, and Bibles that follow the humanistic approach advocated by the supporters of the critical text. Over here, we see the preserved line through the Byzantine, through the multiplicity of copies that are faithfully copied here, resulting in the majority text of the Textus and the Textus Receptus, which is then translated in 1611 finally into the King James Bible. Over here, we see the corrupted, the critical line through the Alexandrian line, which are rejected by people by the end of the 4th century. The Codex Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are the two most popular, and this results in the critical text promoted by Westcott and Hort, which is the foundation of what's called the Nestle-Aland Greek text, which is translated and is a result of almost every modern version into English. This versus what? This. This whole stack here comes from that text. This one here comes from that one. Okay? Now, common misconception that we need to clear up. Most people believe that modern versions are simply an updating of the archaic words of the King James Bible. I can't stress this enough. This is not the case. The real issue in the version debate is not how to translate individual Greek words into English, but rather which set of Greek text are you going to use to make your translation. The reason why modern versions don't read the same as your King James Version is because the King James translates this, the modern versions translate what? this. There are fundamentally only two different types of Bibles. The reason the King James and modern versions are different is because they are translated from an entirely different set of Greek manuscripts. Now, we need to start looking at some differences here. The following list that we're going to go through illustrates what was done when the text used by Christianity for 1800 years, was replaced with a text assembled by Westcott and Hort in the 19th century and used as the basis for the English Revised Version, which nearly all modern translations closely follow. And you need to keep in mind here, not every modern version is the same. There are some differences between them, okay? And I want to go to this because I want to get to the thing. If you look at the critical text and you assemble the differences in the readings, it would be the equivalent of taking out the entire book of 1st and 2nd Peter out of the Bible. That's how much difference there is between the readings in English that you have in a King James and the readings in English that are in a modern version. Now, here's what I want to do. I want everybody to turn for each one of these verses to it in your King James Bible, and we're going to read it. Okay? Then what you're going to see up there on the screen is 3 examples of modern translations. For every one, you're going to see the NIV, the New American Standard, and the New Living Translation. Okay? The New Living Translation is a popular one. It was done in 1996. And if you listen to WJQ or a lot of the Christian radio stations in this area of West Michigan, when they quote their verse or the scripture of the day, they almost always quote it from a New Living Translation. That's why I included it. So, let's start with Matthew chapter 1, go to verse 25. So again, what you see on the screen behind me is the example of how the verse reads in 3 modern translations. The NIV, the New American Standard Version, and the New Living Translation. Just so we're clear on what we're doing here, I need to demonstrate to you that the issue here is what are you going to translate from? Matthew chapter 1, look at verse 25. King James. And he knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son and called his name Jesus. Now, if you look at the slide behind me, what's missing? Some of you already know. The word firstborn. It's not there. Now, why is the word firstborn not there in the modern version? I can tell you why it's not there in the modern version. It's not in that Greek text. Why is it in the King James Version? It's in that Greek text. So the fundamental difference here is what are you going to what? Translate. Okay? Let's look at another one. Let's go to Matthew chapter 6. How many of you ever heard a Catholic quote the Lord's Prayer? If you've ever listened to it, you know that they don't quote it the same way a Protestant does. Okay? Matthew chapter 6, look at verse 13. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. What? Look at the NIV reading above me. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. The whole phrase there, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, is what? It's gone. Why is it gone? Because it's not where? It's not in that text. Why is it in the King James? It's in that text. Let's go to another one. Let's go to Let's go to Matthew chapter 17, verse 21. Howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. I don't have a slide for this one. You want to know why? Because the whole verse isn't there. If you come up here after the service, you look up that verse in the NIV Bible, the New Living Translation, or the New American Standard Bible, it's up here, the whole verse is gone. It's not there. Why is it gone? Because it's not where? It's not in that Greek text. Listen, folks, you can't translate something if it's not there in what you're translating. Come with me to Matthew chapter 18, verse 11. Matthew chapter 18, verse 11.
behind.